Well, good evening and welcome to the Special Called Airport Board Meeting for Cleveland, Texas. I'm Hugh McFarland, the Chairman of the Airport Board. To my left is Mr. Jake Litwin, Board Member. Greg Model, also Board Member. There's Mr. Eric, the Airport Manager. Ms. Juanita Lemon, the City Secretary, and Julius Buckley, representing the City Council. Thank you for all for being here, and those who are tuning in and watching this now or in the future. We appreciate your time and attention to the matters. Let's stand and we'll do the invocation and pledge, please.
Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for a beautiful day, for a wonderful community, and for the privilege of enjoying the gift of flight that we are also blessed to be a part of. We are thankful for the city allowing a board like this to meet and provide input. And in that vein, dear Lord, we ask that you give us the wisdom and the spirit of openness to discuss the issues placed before us. All of this we ask in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Okay, we have no one here to from the public to speak, so we will just get right to our consideration and possible action on the following. And this is the subject of the traffic pattern safety concerns that have been raised. In the past, we've been discussing traffic pattern safety at the Cleveland Airport for a little while, and the last board meeting, we brought the subject up into either we need to make a decision on this, move forward, or just move on to other business. But we felt that, due to the traffic, at times there's quite a bit of density at the airport and a lot of student training, and we want to do our part for the city to help mitigate any kind of safety concerns that there may be. And so that's what brings us here today for this special called meeting. As you recall, last meeting we discussed some verbiage to have published, and Mr. Gregg had mentioned that it would be wise to solicit input from users and flight schools that utilize the airport, and we all agreed that that would be wise, and we would postpone making a decision on maybe limiting the traffic pattern until we got some feedback from users. And so that's what brings us here today. I did take a couple pictures. If you could please open picture number 1. And we'll see. I was flying in just the other day. This was Friday. And if you'll load, and it just so happened, I'm 50 miles out from Cleveland inbound, and I took a screenshot of the traffic that was in the pattern at that time. Oh, thank you. So I'm coming in from the north, and so there's 4 in the pattern right there. And this is the runway 16 approach in, so they're in left traffic for runway 16. So there's 4 aircraft right there. As you see, they're pretty, 1 in the upwind, 2 on the downwind, and then this one turning base to final. This one here actually ends up, I believe, leaving the pattern and going elsewhere. Could you bring the next one up, please? Okay, so here I'm approaching the airport. There's still traffic in the pattern. Now there's 5 here. This is my aircraft's position. I'm 4 miles to the north, and with the given traffic, my intention here is to come over the airport and enter the traffic pattern with the other aircraft. So again, inbound aircraft here, inbound aircraft over here, 3 in the pattern that are already there, final, and 1 base to final, myself. So I'm the 6th aircraft coming inbound. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to bring this up, because we're talking about numbers of aircraft, that we talked about limiting the pattern. So this is just fast forwarding that just another mile or two. My position is a little bit closer to the airport. Then this was that aircraft that was over here. This one was up here. You notice these are in yellow. This was perceived as a conflict in the system. In fact, it looked like this aircraft here was going to cut this one off, but by turning inside of them. But they ended up correcting, and then it might have just been just the way the proximity that turned him there. He probably, because this one was following this one from over here, you know, in that previous slide. So as it turns out, you know, this one lands, this one comes in, this one, I came over the top and saw this aircraft, so I came right over the top, entered the downwind, followed this one followed me, and we all came in and did our thing. But I wanted to just show these slides, because the picture, we talked about limiting how many aircraft do we feel is a safe number for the pattern, and so the picture's worth a lot, so that's why we have them. Yes, sir.
If I could add one more comment to that, Hugh, is with that many people in the pattern, the gaps in between aircraft that are trying to land there is where the departures fit. So if there's anybody waiting to take off, they can't get out if there's a long line of people going in, unless the aircraft that are in flight voluntarily extend their base leg or their downwind leg to create extra space so that someone can get out. So that's where, just by virtue of the math, so many people flying in the pattern, there's only so much space minimum between them. There's no room for people who are tenants there at the airport, or people taking off, or Learjets, whatever the case may be. They can't fit to get out. So to me, that's an illustration of what you just showed as well.
Yeah. Could you bring the first one up, please? This first one, this is what kind of illustrates what Greg is talking about. So if there's an aircraft, see the one on the furthest north, -59, those are just relative altitudes based on my altitude is picking up on that. But there would be room here for a departure, but with that one as far off the end of the runway, that's a very evenly. If I was a tower controller, that's how I'd want my pattern to look. And so the concern is, if aircraft get bunched up, then it may cause a delay for an itinerant departure. Is that what you're wanting to illustrate? Okay.
I got a quick question here.
Yes, sir.
So is this a all day? I mean, it's busy like this all day, or is this
No.
just at certain times?
No. And Eric, you can talk to that better than I, but I would say I've never had, flying in here, I've flown in times when it's been busy, and, we all work it out. It's never been, like I said in other meetings, I've never had a significant issue trying to get in and out, other than sometimes, hey, ask someone, that's in the pattern already, and I'm trying to depart, could you give me a little extra room so I can get out? And everyone's always been accommodating. But I wouldn't say it's consistent all the time. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not consistent all the time. It's just, it comes in waves. So like, especially for today. So yesterday was windy, so there was nobody flying, right? So these trainers wanted to come out so they get their time back up. So they were just bombarded the airfield this morning. So all this morning and all through the afternoon, and whenever I was leaving, those airplanes flying around. So it just really, it comes and goes. So, but most often it's morning and then the afternoon, and then we see some at the evening.
Meeting, we talked about limiting, you had some verbiage that you had come up with the FAA inspector, contractor, and he was saying if there was X amount of airplanes in the pattern, touch and go operations were prohibited. That was the gist of it, correct?
Yeah, so the language that we had was touch and go operations are prohibitive. are prohibited when 4 or more aircraft are operating in the traffic pattern.
Okay. And so then we asked to solicit information or comments from users, and I'd like you to go over some of those, please.
Yeah, so I reached out to the flight schools, tenants, and all the users around the area. So I prepared something. So background problem. Over the past several months, we've seen an increase in train activity at the airport. It has come in periods where traffic pattern becomes congested. This creates several safety concerns: frequency, congestion, aircraft operating significantly different speeds, limiting space in the pattern, difficulty of aircraft entering, exiting, and departing. We even had documented instances of 7 to 8 aircraft operating in the pattern at one time, which required pilots to work harder than normal just to maintain safe separation. So the concern is real, and that's what led us to this proposal. Tenant feedback. Tenant feedback, from the tenant side, overall response largely supportive for taking action. Most tenants agreed that this is a safety issue, something should be done. Some specifically said that the proposal was a good idea and supported the concept as written. However, there are also some important points raised. Several tenants suggested that lowering the limit from 4 to 3, concerns about fast aircraft mixing with slower training traffic, frustration with extended pattern flown by training aircraft, difficulty departing the airport during heavy touch-and-go activity. A few tenants also suggested alternative approaches such as restricting non-based training traffic, requiring full-stop taxi backs instead of touch-and-goes, and improving radio communication practices. There were also a couple concerns raised about enforcement since this is a non-towered airport. Flight schools feedback. On the flight school side, some responses were more limited. We heard back from 3 schools. 1 supported the proposal, 2 did not support implementing the specific verbiage. Those who did not support still acknowledged the issue but raised concerns about how would this be enforced in real time, the difficulty for student pilots to determine how many aircraft are in the pattern, the practicality of making no-go decisions based on the number of aircraft. They also offered alternative ideas, including a PPR, which is a prior permission requested system for scheduling pattern work, more coordination with the FAA, and voluntary or advisory language instead of strict prohibition. Key takeaways. Overall, what we all see in tenants are largely supportive of taking action and want relief from congestion. Flight schools acknowledge the issue but are more cautious about how it's implemented. There is general agreement that there is a problem but different opinions on the best solution. At this point, no decision has been made. The purpose of tonight's discussion is for the board to provide a recommendation on how to move forward. That could include moving forward with the original proposal of 4 aircraft, adjusting to 3 aircraft, modifying the language, or considering an alternative approach. Ultimately, the goal here is to improve safety while still maintaining reasonable access to the airport, reasonable access and operations to the airport. With that, we'll just open up with recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Greg, what do you think about the feedback? Because you were one that suggested this, and we all agreed to that.
Well, first of all, I appreciated it,
Right.
and it's not really a surprise for the tenants to be concerned because they're the ones that are more greatly impacted. So for them to want action taken is what I expected. And at the same time, I also expected the flight schools to kind of push back a little bit because obviously that will impact their operation, and that's what they're in the business to do. So there aren't any surprises there. I wanted to make a comment on the suggestion to reduce it to 3. I think that's really too low, at least at this point. I would recommend that we continue with the language and offer it at 4. And I would also suggest that if we choose to implement it, that we do so on a 90-day test. So, and then after 90 days, we reevaluate from the tenants and from the flight schools any impacts. Did the concerns actually surface the way they're worried about? Or is it actually working? And maybe there's some adjustments after 90 days that we could make if we gave ourselves the opportunity to listen again. So that would be my recommendation. Stay with the 4 and do a 90-day test and then reevaluate it at that time.
Eric, do you think regarding the test period as far as I know you have to coordinate for publication and stuff with the FAA. Do you foresee any issues with that time frame or anything?
So that test period, so if we get approval now, we'll submit it to the ADIP, which is the cutoff is 1 April. Once we submit that for 1 April, and if it gets approved, it wouldn't even take effect until 60 days later. So the 90 days might be too soon because we won't see anything come to fruition until like May for this to be put into the airport supplement.
Right, but we'd want the test period to be 90 days from when it actually gets published, right? So
Yeah.
it would be, probably 5 or 6 months
Yeah,
from now
yeah,
before we.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, we could look at it and, we could see options and to make sure that the decision, that we, that was recommended was the appropriate action.
Okay, thank you. I agree with you, Greg, as far as the number. I think 3 would be a little bit too punitive to the flight schools and to our local, operators. I think 4 is I think 5 would probably be too much because we know whatever number we select, it's going to, like right in that year, there was 6, in the mix when I arrived, which was, it all worked out fine. However, if there's 5 in the pattern and you add 2 itinerants, now we're talking 7. So it has the ability for that downwind to get extended out. And now, we have the problem of, with an extended downwind, the problem that happens in a traffic pattern is aircraft have a tendency to cut one another off because they can't see, they lose track of the aircraft on final and the one on base is so far north that there's a possibility of, cutting one another off. So I think 4 is a reasonable number, especially, during a test period. We did have that other verbiage that I suggested a while back, and I'll read that, and I think this may be, I think what you have is probably a little more concise, maybe easier, but this was when there are 4 or more aircraft in the traffic pattern, in the local traffic pattern for runway 1634, all aircraft on final approach are expected to do one of the following: make a full stop landing and taxi back, a touch and go, and missed approach and depart the pattern. So that's kind of the explanation of what you're saying, with that verbiage that touch and go is prohibited when there's 4 or more aircraft in the pattern.
Yeah, so all the airport supplement I saw, it was just real short, concise. So, it's just gonna have to, whenever flight schools or instructors are training, just like, hey, what this means. So hopefully they'll, get that.
Okay.
I got another question here.
Sure.
So could this be solved by just limiting when they can do touch and goes?
Well-
For instance, if you say they come in waves, right? So it's like rush hour traffic. So you can't do touch and goes from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and from 4 to 5 p.m. Everything in between's okay, but from this time to this time is your window to get these in, like, when it's lighter traffic.
Well, that would work in a scheduled environment where you have, but at a non-towered general aviation airport, generally you're not going to have any kind of scheduled operations. So I don't think that would be a solution. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I think
Greg?
if you're in between waves and there's nobody out there and you're wanting to do touch and goes, but you're within within the window in which they're prohibited, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
I mean, I would be very frustrated if I had a student and I will really need to take advantage of the gap and do a bunch of practice landings, but because we publish no touch and goes between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., for example, I can't do it.
That makes
So,
sense.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
this addresses, actual demand, and if the demand is there, then we're trying to tamp that down. And it's real easy, honestly, for anybody, me, flight schools, whatever, as you're approaching the airport, count the people in ADSB that you see. And if there's, 4, go somewhere else or plan on doing full stops.
Right.
There probably will be people on the ground that add to that, quite honestly, that we're not being able to see on ADSB. But
Yeah, it's not like we're trying to discourage the flight schools or anybody from using the airport. We're just, if you opposed to a touch and go, where it just kind of builds the pattern, just a full stop, taxi back, and do another. That's
It
what,
creates gaps.
correct. And that's I think Eric and I were having this conversation. I used to be a VFR tower controller early in my FAA career. And that was the one thing that we would do when the pattern got extended or got excessive. Everybody's making a full stop. And then you bring everything in, and then you start again. And that's what a full stop landing will do to our pattern.
Hugh, I had another question regarding the publication of the procedure and the suggestion for a 90-day test. Is it possible to communicate a 90-day test and work out the bugs before we publish permanently? So in other words, before we meet those time deadlines, can we communicate this in another way as a remark on the AWAS and as a NOTAM? Is that something we can do temporarily until we work the details out?
Once it gets approved, then yeah, we can, but until the approval from the ADIP is done, then we could, if it's good to go, we could put on the AWAS, we can.
So the AIP is a procedural arm, right? That's
Correct,
not really a
yeah.
publication arm?
Yeah,
That's not,
it's
okay.
procedural.
Okay, good. Got you, thank you.
So we agree on a number of 4, if we're going to limit the traffic pattern to 4. And
I'm curious if Julius has got thoughts there too.
I mean, it's regarding, so if you get more than 4, if I understand it correctly, you have to come in and do a complete landing, and then come back in and get it back. So
Correct.
stop and touch and go is essentially what it's going to do.
yeah, we're just trying to prevent the pattern to be just with an excessive amount of airplanes. And what they'll do, these flight operations, these training events, where touch and goes is part of training, and it's a required maneuver. And when you have multiple flight schools all vying for the same strip of runway and all wanting to do touch and goes, it's not like they're just coming in and landing and kind of removing themselves from the congestion. They're just continually in it. And so it can build to where you can have 7, 8, 10 airplanes that trying to do touch and goes, and then the pattern gets so congested and elongated that is where we feel that there's a potential safety issue.
Yeah, to start. Yeah.
To start.
Just to see where it lands, it seems like it's not enough, we can always adjust that number later, one way or the other.
Just knowing that it'll take time for it to work through, the publication process and stuff like that, because it takes,
The wording stays there, all you do is change the number.
Correct. Right. And I think, it would be, foolish to think that if we say 4, we're not going to have, like in that case, there was 4 in the pattern. When I showed up, there was 6 aircraft vying to land, which is, it worked itself out fine. So you're going to have, just say if we set this number at 4, it doesn't mean you're not going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 aircraft at a time, but it'll be stopping, they'll be making a full stop. So, go ahead, Larry. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about what if the people do not comply?
Well, that's, I mean, it's a non-towered, uncontrolled airport, so, I mean, there's not really an enforcement arm that we have, other than, I kind of think that would be self-enforcing in a sense. I think these flight schools and the pilots, I think that'll work itself out. I don't, most, I've been in this business for a long time, and Greg as well. Most pilots are going to want to comply and keep it safe and within the procedures. I think it's just part of who we are, and I don't think you're going to have, now, sure, there's going to be, people that make a mistake, or, oh, I thought he was going to be a full stop, and, and that's going to happen, and we can't, it'd be foolish to think that that's not going to happen. But I think for the most part, pilots are going to see what we're trying to accomplish, and I think they will appreciate, coming to Cleveland and not knowing that they're not going to be, a heightened risk of, people turning inside of each other because they can't see them on an extended final. And, it certainly is not a catch-all solution to prevent any kind of, possible mishap. But I think we're making a step in the right direction as far as recognizing a potential issue and putting some thought and action into mitigating it. But as far as an enforcement, Eric can't get on the radio and say, call these people out. He's not going to do that. That's not within. So I think we have to be, as users, we have to self-police it and just,
It's sort of like the airport facility directory has in remarks that the calm wind runway is runway 16. That's not enforceable. But it states the intent of the airport, and I would tell you by and large, most of the pilots comply with that. And you have those that choose not to for whatever reason, so usually there's some conversation on the frequency to correct that or comply or whatever we need to do. So I see this starting off as a similar situation.
mm-hmm. Do you have any feedback, Larry? You're a tenant user out there. What is your,
I think it's worth trying it and seeing what happens and responding accordingly. If there's an issue or that things don't comply.
right,
I think generally it's all good.
all right, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Buckley? Yeah. Okay. Jake, what, yeah,
You answered my questions.
okay, all right. Then, I ask for a motion to, yes, sir.
Could we have Eric read the language again?
Certainly.
So that then we can, when we make a motion to accept it, we have it fresh in our minds?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So the language, verbiage that we want to use, touch-and-go operations are prohibited when 4 or more aircraft are operating in the traffic pattern.
I'd like to request a motion to approve that language to be published for the Cleveland Airport.
I move that the advisory board recommend the proposed language that Eric just read.
All right. I second it.
Second.
All right.
Aye.
No.
Okay, well, that concludes our action items for the meeting, and we appreciate your time, and thank you for the input,
I
everyone.
have a procedural request. This now goes to city council. Is that for final decision? Is that how this would work? Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. And if you need any more information to present that to the city council, okay, perfect. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.